Hello, everyone, and welcome to ILA New Network, connecting with staff remotely. My name is Tamara Jenkins, and I am the Communications and Engagement Manager for ILA. This is, again, Connecting with Staff Remotely webinar. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to our speaker, Kate Hall. Kate has been a library director since 2010 after being a manager in public libraries and bookstores since 1999. In addition to her master's in library and information sciences, she also has a master's in business administration with an emphasis in nonprofit management. As a director, Kate has worked to streamline budgets, educate staff, craft technology competencies, complete building renovations, and connect with her local communities. Engaged at the local and state level on a variety of committees and boards, Kate serves in a number of library leadership positions. Really quick housekeeping issues. If you have a question, you're more than welcome to use the Q&A component that's next to the chat box, or you can use the chat box to ask questions, and we will answer questions at Kate's discussion. If she sees the question in the Q&A, she may just answer it during the presentation. If not, then we'll hold all questions until the end. So now, Kate, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Tamara. Well, I am very excited to be here with all of you today. Today, we are going to be talking about connecting with staff remotely, which all of us need to be figuring out right about now. So this is mostly everything I've learned over the last few weeks. So I see from our attendees that there's some other people here who I'm sure also have really good ideas. So feel free to share any additional ideas you have in the chat. My slide didn't advance. There we go. So who am I? Tamara already said. I also have been, for the last few years, on the committee that organizes the Directors University training, which is a week-long training at the Illinois State Library for new library directors. I'm really excited to be here today, but before we dive in, I do have a reminder for everyone. Today, voting started for the ILA election. So if you are a member of ILA, you will have gotten an email from the fantastic ILA staff. Please take a moment to go ahead and fill out the ballot and vote. I will warn you, it is like really tough this year. There's some really good candidates on there, but please take a moment during all the craziness that surrounds us and do that. So now I'd really like to hear from all of you. Who are you? Please feel free to share where you are from, what your position is, if you're a director or not, and what maybe one thing that you're hoping to learn today in our kind of brief ILA New Network presentation. And now I'm going to just awkwardly pause while people type. So I know this is always the awkward part, right? But you can stare at the funny bird. I don't know what kind of bird it is. I feel like maybe an emu, maybe? I don't know. Do you have any reference librarians? Carol could maybe tell us. All right. Wonderful. Well, it looks like we have people from all over the library, so this is great. And it sounds like Pam is interested in learning about what we can do to keep staff morale up, which, yeah, for sure, Pam, like that is something that weighs on my mind a lot. So we'll definitely be talking about that. So wonderful. Yeah, keeping them fresh. Mary, we're going to try. I'm hoping to lean on all of you for some great ideas on what we can do to keep things fresh. So, and it sounds like Cheryl's interested in trying to stay connected to our staff, which hopefully this will be very helpful to you. It is a lot. So maintaining positive energy, I think, yeah, is definitely really important. Well, great. Feel free to keep adding in the chat. I'm going to just go over what we are going to cover today. So we are going to learn fast and furious a few things: the importance of communication in working remotely, although it's important everywhere, it's especially important in working remotely. We also are going to talk about how to stay connected not only with staff, with peers, and the whole library, but also how to stay connected with our library colleagues, much like we're doing now, how to continue fostering those incredibly important interpersonal communication relationships during remote work, and then also really important, how to draw boundaries on communication, because working remotely, we can just keep going all the time. So why does communication matter? Well, communication is the first thing to break down when people are stressed. And I don't know about you guys, but like, I'm pretty stressed right now. So that means that we have to pay even more attention to it. Communication is the most important thing to keep up with during a crisis. When people are stressed, though, they tend to only remember what they hear first and last. So I'm hoping that you will remember this and also remember whatever I say at the very end. It is very clear that because people are stressed, when people are stressed, they have a lot of difficulty digesting information, and recall is very limited. So understanding that stress means the communication we are doing is less effective, we're also going to have to acknowledge that we must take an even bigger effort to communicate with people, while, of course, maintaining social distancing, unlike in this image, which is not adhering to social distancing at all, but still a helpful image. So let's start by talking a little bit about how to connect with staff. So there's a few things that we're doing at my library, and if your library is doing other things, please feel free to share them in the chat. So we are doing one-on-one check-ins by phone or Zoom, which is the platform we've been using with our Ring Central phone system, Google Hangout, email, texting. This is really important to do for the managers to check in with their staff regularly, just to make sure people are doing okay. Do they need anything? It also is about meeting people where they are at. So if you have someone that only wants to email, then respect that. Don't demand that they adhere to something that you feel like, well, we have to have a video conference call. Like, well, no, because we don't know where everyone is at with what is going on in the world right now. And so respecting where they're at while still checking in with them is important. And so we don't want to ever dictate to staff how we are communicating with them. We want to, again, meet them where they are at. That's really critically important. It's also important at the departmental level to meet with people. And so one of the things that we can do is we can have department meetings. So we are doing this mostly with Google Hangouts, sometimes with our Zoom platform. We are also doing virtual lunches and hangouts. I know a couple of the departments in my library have done like little social hours. I would encourage you not to make it like a virtual cocktail hour all the time, because that not everyone drinks, for one. I mean, I do, but not everyone does. And respecting that and respecting that could be triggering for some people, but still finding ways to relax with the department and not just get to work. I think something we assume is like, so my library is a 35-hour work week, which means that people work 7 hours a day. And my staff work incredibly hard and they get an amazing amount of stuff done. But realistically, we're not all working every single minute of those 7 hours. So we need to build some relaxation and downtime in. And so doing it and having more social activities is a great way to do that. And then library-wide, what my slides don't want to click. What I have been doing is doing a daily director email. My email has updates from what's going on around Northbrook. It has information on our employee assistance program. I'll sometimes put notes in for like nice things patrons have said on social media about us. And it's just making sure that people know what decisions are being made, what decisions haven't been made yet, but we're still thinking about it. So I had a lot of questions in the last week, like, are we going to go past April 7th? Are we going to? Are we going to? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure but I'm not the governor. I'm just a librarian, so I can't tell you for sure. And so just reinforcing that you don't know information, but that it's on your radar is really, really important. This is an incredibly unsettling time for everyone. And as a director, it's incredibly important to ensure your staff know what is going on. They're not sitting in all of your meetings with you. They don't know all the things going on behind the scenes. And because you're not in the library, they don't see you doing any of that. So you need to tell them that you are doing that, and give them an opportunity to ask questions, because generally if one person has a question, a lot of other people are as well. We also created an all-staff relaxation room where we're sharing adorable fur baby pictures, recipes, videos, books that we're reading. One of our staff just made this awesome YouTube video of all of his pets. He works in our makerspace and is learning some advanced techniques with some video editing software. So like, that's a great way for people to blow off some steam and still chat with each other where it's not like work related. We also have implemented a weekly all-staff meeting that we do twice a day on Friday for anyone who is interested in attending. And we've started doing a weekly staff lunchroom via Google Hangouts. We did one last week and we'll have another one tomorrow. Again, looking not only to share information, but looking for ways for people to connect with each other. And so one of the things that is really important is also connecting with our library colleagues. And so I just have to say, like, I was looking for fun pictures and I found this awesome one from Vernon. I don't know if we have anyone from Vernon. I didn't see anyone on the list so far, but this was just such a perfect picture. I just loved it. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. So now, more than ever, libraries need to do what we do best, which is sharing information. But it can be a bit much, right? There's all these different pieces of information coming at us, and it can feel a little overwhelming. And so how do you keep up and stay connected with our library colleagues while you're also trying to figure out what's going on in your own library and also in your own personal life, and all of the stresses that are around that, especially for all of our parents that are currently doing 3 jobs where they're working and they're parenting and they're teaching. Like, kudos to all of you. You guys are amazing, and I have the utmost respect. I'm lucky. It's just me and my husband and our 2 cats, so I have it pretty easy. So what can you do in terms of connecting with library colleagues? Well, Rails and Heartland have some listservs. They have listservs for specific types of positions. They have listservs for specific topics like programming or marketing. And this is a great way to connect with people. You can find out more on both of their websites. I also probably belong to more Facebook groups than I should own. This is not all of them. I cut myself off. But this is a great way to connect with people far outside of the Illinois library field. And don't get me wrong, like, we're pretty awesome here in Illinois, or really awesome here in Illinois, but this gives you a broader sense of what's going on in the country. So there's the library think tank, the management group, the deeper library think tank, the employee support network. There is one just for public library directors, and there's like a programming one and a bunch of other stuff. So if you are on Facebook and you're interested in connecting more broadly, this is a great way to do it. It also will make you feel a lot better about the steps that we've been taking here in Illinois, because unfortunately there's a lot of libraries out in the country that are still making really poor decisions for their staff and their communities. So if nothing else, it will give you a little boost, like, oh, look at how well we're doing here. Not that we should be like bringing them down. We can also help support them and share what we're doing to hopefully tuck some sense into some of the administrators, which is not always an easy task, as my staff can tell you. So you can also connect with a small group of colleagues. So the Rails and Heartland listservs are super helpful, but it's also important to note that that can sometimes be overwhelming if you have hundreds of people reading. And so I like to set up just a small group email with just maybe like 4 or 5 other directors that I know, either geographically close or similar sized, or people that I just really respect. And I reach out to them and like, hey, we're thinking about this. Where are you guys at with this? So that it's a more targeted approach and it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. I also recommend you socialize virtually. as I mentioned, I do enjoy a glass of wine or whiskey in the evening, and so I have a virtual cocktail hour. I did one last week. I have another one coming up on Thursday, and that's a great way for you to blow out some steam with some of your library colleagues and talk about some of the challenges that you're facing, and maybe not talk about coronavirus, maybe instead just talk about Tiger King, right? Because that could be a thing. So it's important that you're not only sharing factual information, but that you're sharing information about how you're doing and connecting with people. And we're going to talk about that just a little more in another minute. So with all of this, there's a lot of different communication channels, and this can become pretty overwhelming. We have like all these different ways that we communicate, and I was feeling pretty overwhelmed at first because I was getting phone calls, I was getting emails, I was getting G-chats, Facebook messages, text messages, and it was like it was too much. Facebook messages were mostly like other library colleagues. So make sure you're using the right communication tool for the job. For groups, Zoom or Google Hangouts is great because everyone can see each other if they choose to share their camera and share screens. For short updates or questions, text or G-chat are the way to go. I should mention my library lives in a Google world, so I know Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365, whatever it's called, also has a lot of similar things. And so for one-on-one, this is, again, meeting people where they're at. But if you have to do a one-on-one interaction, I've been actually relying more on the phone because I'm getting so tired of staring at my screen all the time. And email is great if you don't need a quick response and if you need to be sure something is disseminated to everyone. So the point with this is that there are a lot of communication channels, and you have to decide which ones you're going to use and then communicate that clearly to others. You have to let them know what your preferred communication methods are and then ask what theirs are so that you can all be clear. Because everyone is so stressed now, people are making a lot of assumptions like, well, they must like text better than phone calls. Like, I prefer phone calls. I don't like texting. It's a necessary evil. It's like my sister will only correspond via text most of the time. And so ditto with my nieces and nephew. It's like I have to do it, but I don't have to like it. So if you ask me, I prefer to talk on the phone or even do FaceTime. So yeah, and it looks like we had a question from Blanca about how do you keep your personal life separate from work when using Facebook? So I have my own personal Facebook account. I mostly post adorable pictures of my nibblings, which are my nieces and nephew, and information about the library, like just that I find interesting, and stuff about Harry Potter because, hello, Harry Potter is awesome. And so I think that is a real challenge, and that's something that, you know, you have to just draw firm boundaries on. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So hold tight. So finally, the key here with all of this is, of course, yes, to get work done, but the point of all this communication is to foster interpersonal relationships. You build relationships through trust and time, but that's really hard to do right now because we don't have casual interactions with people. So you have to be more vulnerable, and that is a really scary thing. But recognize that everyone is feeling some degree of stress and fear right now. So tell people how you are doing. Ask how they're doing. Feel free to reach out to a colleague that you're not seeing and being like, hey, how are things going? We've been trying to build time into my managers' meetings and my all-staff meetings just to see how people are doing. Acknowledging that this is hard, acknowledging that this is going to be hard for a while, and recognizing that everyone is at different stages. And so my mom passed away last fall, and it was awful, right? Because losing a parent is horrible. Losing anyone close to you is horrible. And so I've been going through this whole grieving process, and then this happened. And so, like, my therapist just keeps telling me, she's like, you just need to be kind to yourself. And that's something we all need to do, and recognize that we are all grieving. We're grieving about things that we have not gained yet. We're grieving about things that we're losing right now. Like I was supposed to go on this awesome trip with my friend to Amsterdam next month, or I guess this month now, and like that's not happening. And so it is okay to be grieving, but recognize that when you are grieving, your brain isn't working the same way it always is. And so we have to be really deliberate when we're communicating with people to ensure that we are getting our message across and we're not making assumptions or thinking people are, you know, especially with email, like, well, that was certainly abrupt. Like, well, no, maybe they're just not in a good place right now to expound on something. There's a great article from Harvard Business Review on anticipatory grief that I highly recommend that was really, really good. And so with all of this, kind of getting back to Blanca's question, it's all about creating boundaries. So you have to create firm boundaries on when you will be communicating and how you'll be communicating so you don't get caught in an endless cycle of work. So I've been pretty firm about limiting my communications to my staff Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now, last week, we did have to squeak by, or maybe it was the week before. I lost all sense of time. I did have to send them something at like 6 p.m. But like in general, I'm trying to keep it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, so that they don't feel like they have to always be on, because I don't want them to be on. I want them disconnecting and relaxing and taking time to be with their family if they want to be doing that at this point. And so you have to decide what your boundaries are and then be clear in communicating them so people know. And then don't apologize for them. My youth services manager is at home with 2 little kids, a first grader and a preschooler, and it is rough. So she told me, she's like, I'm going to work from like 6:30 to 8:30, and then in the afternoon from like 1 to 4, because those are the times my kids are napping or they're not awake yet, and that's when I can be my most productive. Great. So don't make assumptions about when you need to be communicating or how. I mean, do make assumptions about how. It should be frequent, but make sure that you're clear with that with your manager, with your staff, so that you know and they know what those boundaries are. And most important, just be really kind to yourself right now. Like, we are all doing the best that we can. And if you just go into this with kindness, then your staff are going to understand. You know, give everyone a lot of grace, and know that we're going to get through this. So, as I mentioned, we went through that like super fast. But we talked a little bit about the importance of communication and working remotely. We went over some strategies to stay connected with library coworkers and staff, as well as with library colleagues. We gave some ideas on fostering interpersonal relationships and talked briefly about how to take care of yourself during these very tumultuous times. I did put together some resources that I found helpful in the last few weeks. And so ILA will be sending out all of the slides after this, so feel free to use these. There's a lot. I also have to mention, because my editor would yell at me if I didn't, that I wrote a book last year. It is not about remote work, like even a little bit. But if you are having trouble sleeping, you might want to consider this. My friend Kathy Parker and I wrote the Public Library Director's Toolkit that's available from ALA Editions. There is a code here if you are interested. I would suggest ILLing it right now, but that isn't a thing. So if you're looking for a little light reading, this is something that you might be interested in. And with that, we'll turn it over to my husband, who wants to know if you guys have any questions.
Someone in the chat, Kathy, asked, how do you keep your personal life separate from work when using Facebook? Bianca.
Yeah, so I touched on that briefly, but I'd love to hear what other people's thoughts are. So feel free to share in the chat. Like,
sorry.
No, that's fine. I went really fast, so I totally get it. I mostly use it. So like, I have a, I don't want to call it a belief. I have a guideline for myself that any staff member that sends me a request to friend me on Facebook, I say yes to. I don't ever post anything on Facebook that I wouldn't be willing to post in any open environment. Laura mentioned that it's possible to create a second Facebook account. I have decided not to do that. So everything I do is through my personal one. I'm obviously an administrator on my library's Facebook page as well, but that's, you know, a little bit different. So I think that this is a really individual thing, and you have to determine what you're comfortable with. Like I know some people who are friends with everyone they work with, and some people who are friends with no one they work with. And so you have to make the decision. And then the key here is, as with all decisions, like knowing why you made it and being consistent in executing it. So it's like, well, I really like them, but not really them. Like, nope, everyone either is in or out. And I think that that makes it a little bit easier. I don't know if that helps at all, Blanca. So Kim is asking about how do you stay connected with your volunteers, especially during Volunteer Appreciation Month? And this is a great question. I have to be honest, we haven't talked about our volunteers. We've sent them some information, right? And we've been sending them updates, but we haven't really talked about that. So thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm jotting a note to myself to talk to my volunteer coordinator about it, because I think that is something. Does anyone have any suggestions for things that they would like that they're doing for their Volunteer Appreciation Month? I mean, I think the biggest thing we're doing is not allowing them into possibly infected buildings. So go us. All right. Do we have any other questions or ideas? Is anyone else doing anything? Yeah, Tamara, I don't know the answer to this, and whether it was being recorded. Tamara?
This is Tamara.
Oh, yeah,
I answered in the chat that, yeah, we're gonna make it available soon. If you check for or read our ILA alert that we send out Mondays and Thursdays, we'll definitely announce it there first.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, and Kim said that she asked them to share any silly stories about their time during quarantine, apparently toilet paper wars, which sounds like a really bad use of toilet paper right now, but I'm just kidding. I think it's all fine. The supply chains are all in place. And it sounds like some people are going to be sending weekly emails, email newsletters, which is really great. And it sounds like the volunteer coordinator has been routinely emailing their volunteers to stay in touch with just friendly communication, which is really great. When I was at the grocery store a week ago, I went to check out, and in the checkout lane next to me was someone from our friend's bookshop, and I was like, hey, and she looked at me and I'm like, from the library. She's like, oh my God. She's like, I didn't recognize you out of the building. I'm like, I know. And so it was just like that connection is so important. Yeah. Oh, and Aaron is mentioning the great Facebook post he's seen by the Fox River Valley Libraries to their patrons. The post is if it's from the library building itself and gives lots of great behind the scenes info while addressing good to know pieces of information. Yeah. Yeah. And I know this was definitely about connecting with staff, but connecting with patrons could be a whole other thing. So Pam asked, what do I share in my daily emails to all staff? Presumably you don't have new info each day, or lately we do, but is it more just a hello to everyone, checking how they are? Okay, hang on. I'm going to pull up one. Give me just a second, and I'll share it so you guys can see. I closed everything down because I was like trying to keep my computer pretty tight. Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to see the whole thing. Okay, let me share this. Hang on. No, hang on a minute. I don't think it is sharing. Okay, is it sharing? Can people see it? Okay, cool. So basically I have it divided into sections. I've created 2 goals for my staff, an internal goal and an external goal, and I keep those at the top of every email. The And then I do updates. So this is just kind of like, hey, questions I've been getting, information from the community, et cetera. And then this is also where I share like stuff about the EAP, as you can see. And then I do decisions. So we have, anytime I make a decision about something, I share it here. It gets put on there for 2 days. One day as new, and then the following day as a, like, this happened yesterday, but in case you missed it, right? And then I have just a relaxation and connection. So I put stuff about our all staff relaxation room, our staff lunchroom, and then any kind of cool quotes from patrons or fun stuff that staff is doing. I'll sometimes put a picture in there. And yeah, and I've been doing this, and so I'm just keeping it so like you can kind of see, like I just do this every day, and I work on it throughout the day. So hopefully, yeah, and if anyone is interested in this, you can email me at khall@northbrook.com. I'm happy to share this with you if you want to get a better sense of what I'm sharing. Oh, and Mary Adamowski mentioned that they're in the middle of renovation projects, and so they sent staff pictures of the renovation project and planning to just remember to send staff fun stuff once in a while. Yeah, and the stress is definitely there. So like fun stuff is really important. And it sounds like Sandy is doing a Google Doc where we post info to staff, try to add info at least 3 times a week. And it's also an archive. And yeah, that's what mine is. Like you can see mine just keeps going back and back and back. So, and then, oh no, I just lost the chat. Hang on. Oh, it minimized itself when I stopped sharing. That was interesting. Give me just 1 second, guys. And then, yeah, other ideas or any other questions we meaning me, I guess, and the rest of the brilliant people on this webinar can answer. It's so awkward when you can't hear anything and you're like, did I pause long enough? Just, you know, I think maybe I count to 10 a lot in my head, and then I don't help by just continuing to talk. So great. Well, thank you guys all so much for coming. It has been great chatting with you and getting some of your ideas. Thank you. I think it was Kim who talked about the volunteer appreciation. I'm going to jump on that this afternoon. And I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you all remember to just be really kind to yourselves, and remember we're all doing the best that we can, and we're going to get through this because Illinois libraries are awesome and we do great stuff. And we'll look back on this and always remember it, but we are, we're doing a really good job right now. So pat yourselves on the back.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I want to thank everybody. This is Tamara Jenkins. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Kate has been kind enough to do another webinar on Monday, April 6th, interviewing remotely. So if you're interested in that, we have, you know, a ton of great webinars and content to provide for you guys. So along with the new network, we'll have Reaching Forward Friday starting this Friday, so we're really excited about that. But if you have any questions for Kate, please, you can send them to me also, and I can make sure that Kate gets them, and we will be making her slides available to everyone else. The email will come from me. So thank you all, and stay safe, and have a great day. Thank you.
Great. Bye, everyone.